Water splashed across the gleaming silver laptop, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. The boardroom full of executives, the gasping assistants, the look of horror spreading across the CEO's face. The janitor, his trembling hands clutching the half-empty mop bucket, stood there in silent shock. His name was Daniel Hayes, a single father who had spent the last 5 years cleaning this building while dreaming that someday, somehow, life might stop punishing him for simply trying to survive. But this accident, this one small mistake, was about to change everything, in ways no one could have ever imagined. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of the human heart, then make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This story might just remind you that every life, no matter how broken, carries a spark worth saving. Daniel had been working night shifts at Sterling & Company, one of the biggest investment firms in the city. Once, long ago, he'd had a promising future, a wife he loved, a small home filled with laughter, and a newborn son named Ethan. But when cancer took his wife, everything crumbled. He lost his job, then his home, and with a newborn baby depending on him, Daniel took the first job he could find, cleaning offices after hours. Each night, he'd carry Ethan to a neighbor's apartment, promise he'd be home soon, and then mop floors until his knees ached. To him, dignity was not in the paycheck but in the persistence to never give up, even when the world seemed to forget you existed. That morning was different. The CEO, Victoria Langford, had called an early emergency meeting, and Daniel was told to clean the boardroom before the executives arrived. Exhausted and distracted, his mind wandered to Ethan's school trip that he couldn't afford. His son had begged him the night before, "Please, Dad, I'll be the only one not going." Those words echoed in his mind as he worked. Then, as he bent to empty a mop bucket, someone brushed past him in a hurry, knocking his elbow. The bucket tipped. Water splashed. And in an instant, the CEO's laptop, open on the conference table, was drenched. Gasps filled the room. Daniel's heart raced so fast it felt like the world was collapsing around him. He tried to apologize, his voice barely a whisper, but the executives were already muttering in disgust. One of them sneered, "This is why people like him shouldn't be allowed in here." Victoria stood silent, her expression unreadable, as Daniel scrambled for paper towels. He could already see it, the pink slip, the humiliation, another job gone. He thought of Ethan waiting for breakfast that morning, smiling up at him with those big hopeful eyes. And in that moment, all Daniel could think was, not again. Please, not again. But then, something unexpected happened. As Victoria leaned forward to inspect the laptop, the water had shorted the screen just enough to reveal an image, not the financial report she'd been working on, but a small photo tucked away in a corner folder that had popped up automatically. It was a picture of a little boy sitting on a hospital bed, his head wrapped in bandages, holding a paper crane. Her hand trembled. The room fell silent. The image was her younger brother, years ago, before the accident that took him away. No one else in the room knew what that photo meant to her, no one except Victoria. She stared at Daniel, suddenly seeing not a clumsy janitor, but a man who had that same haunted look she once saw in her mother's eyes after losing everything. When the others left, she called Daniel back. He stood at the door, shoulders slumped, ready to be fired. But instead of anger, she asked softly, "Do you have children?" That question hit him harder than any reprimand could. He nodded and explained, haltingly, about Ethan, about losing his wife, about trying to keep their world from falling apart. As he spoke, Victoria felt something stir inside her, a forgotten sense of empathy buried under years of corporate coldness. She remembered how her own mother worked 2 jobs after her father left, how they barely survived. That night, Victoria stayed late, searching the company's files. She found Daniel's employment record, 5 years of spotless service, never late, never missing a day. The next morning, she summoned him again. He entered nervously, still expecting the worst. Instead, she placed a folder on the table and said, "You're not a janitor anymore, Mr. Hayes." Inside was an offer, a full-time maintenance supervisor position, triple the pay, with benefits. Daniel was speechless. For the first time in years, his hands trembled not from exhaustion, but from disbelief. "Why?" he whispered. And Victoria simply said, "Because sometimes life gives us small accidents to remind us of the bigger things we've forgotten." Weeks passed, and everything began to change. Daniel's nights were no longer spent scrubbing floors. He got to tuck Ethan into bed and read him stories. Victoria often visited their floor, chatting with employees she once ignored. Slowly, the company culture began to shift, less arrogance, more humanity. People whispered about the CEO who had been humbled by a janitor's mistake, but those who truly understood knew it wasn't humiliation, it was awakening. Months later, during the company's charity gala, Victoria announced a new initiative in memory of her brother: scholarships for children of low-income workers. When Daniel heard his son's name among the first recipients, tears filled his eyes. He looked across the room at Victoria, who smiled faintly and nodded. It wasn't just about money. It was about the recognition that people's worth could never be measured by titles or uniforms, but by the love and resilience they carried through life. And so, what began as a disaster, a spilled bucket of water, became the moment that changed two lives forever. One found redemption in compassion, the other found hope in forgiveness. Life, Daniel realized, has a strange way of testing us, breaking us down, only to rebuild us stronger in the most unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring more stories of hope, second chances, and unseen heroes like Daniel Hayes to the world. And before we end, we'd love to know, what moment in your life restored your faith in kindness? Tell us in the comments below. Your story might just inspire someone else to keep going, because sometimes, one simple accident can become the miracle that saves us all.